Welcome to Open to Receive. I'm your host, Anael Ivon. Now, in the last episode, we explored permission, giving permission to yourself to experience things that you want to experience in your life. And today, I'd like to explore something that may be quietly shaping much more of our lives than we realize, and that's familiarity. Now, not whether something is true, not whether something is possible, but whether it feels familiar. Many of us assume we believe things because they're logical, but what often feels believable is really something that feels familiar. And whatever it is that feels familiar, it shapes more than we realize and can keep us in that realm of what feels familiar more than we realize. The nervous system learns familiarity through repetition. Familiar doesn't always mean good. Familiar can include struggle, it can include waiting, disappointment, self doubt, overworking, crushing it, and scarcity. And people often return to familiar experiences not because they consciously choose suffering, but because familiarity creates predictability. And when something becomes familiar, when we're familiar with something, it becomes predictable. And when something becomes predictable, we begin to expect it. Now, just take a moment and think about that. And let me explain. Over time, expectation can create a kind of gravitational pull. We find ourselves returning to the familiar, not necessarily because it's what we want, but because it's what we've come to expect. This is one reason familiarity can be so powerful. We may expect struggle, we may expect disappointment, we may expect things to take longer than they need to. We may expect support to be unavailable. Nobody's going to help me with this. So you don't even ask for um, and answer those little nudges to ask for some help in areas. We may expect prosperity to be difficult. Now, not because these things are true, but because we have become familiar with them. And what is familiar often feels believable. What is familiar often feels predictable. You know what to expect. And like I said, what is predictable often becomes expected. And there you have that pull of what's familiar or predictable into your life again. Expectation, like I was talking about, its pull, it actually has a way of pulling us toward what we anticipate experiencing. Like there's that feeling in your gut of really you don't want that to happen again, but you've come to expect it because of the repetition of it happening, and your nervous system learns by repetition, like I said. But what happens when we begin to expect support? What happens when we begin expecting life to work with us? What happens when peace becomes familiar? What happens when receiving becomes familiar? Perhaps This is part of what we're really exploring, not forcing a new reality, not pretending, not faking it until you make it. None of that. Not convincing ourselves of something, but becoming gently acquainted with new experiences until they no longer feel foreign, until they feel familiar, until they feel natural, until they feel safe enough to receive. Our nervous systems often prefers a familiar discomfort to an unfamiliar possibility. What if it's not possible? What if what feels impossible is simply unfamiliar? There's a saying I heard a long time ago about doubting something could happen for you. You know, a doubt is nothing more really than a rehearsed thought. So why not doubt the doubt? And what if what feels impossible, like a good relationship, is just unfamiliar because you haven't had that before? So expect a healthier relationship. Start thinking about that. Give yourself, number one, like we talked about in episode 1, give yourself permission to have a healthier relationship. Give yourself permission to have and expect greater support. Expect prosperity in your life. Expect peace. Expect being seen and allowing life to become easier. And give yourself permission to experience these things in your life. You know, and there's a different way to view discomfort. You know, when something you desire feels uncomfortable, we often assume that it's wrong for us. But what if it just simply feels unfamiliar because you haven't had it before? Sometimes discomfort isn't telling us that something is impossible. Sometimes it's telling us that something is just new. And when something is new, we can give ourselves permission to move toward it gently. We can create a bridge from familiarity into possibility, a bridge from what we've known into what we're now becoming open to receive. Pause and, just explore examples from your own life. Some of the things you can think about, just ask yourself, what have I labeled impossible that may be simply unfamiliar? And what would it feel like if this became familiar? And perhaps receiving this isn't a leap. Perhaps receiving is a bridge. And every familiar feeling of relief, support, peace, gratitude, or possibility becomes another plank in that bridge. So today, I invite you to notice, what have I labeled impossible that may simply be unfamiliar? And also, what did I grow up believing was impossible that may simply be unfamiliar? What was I told or taught was impossible for me by others that never even tried it, that haven't done it, who don't have the dreams and desires that I have? So until next time, my friends, remain open to receive. If this conversation found you at just the right time, I invite you to subscribe so we can continue this journey together. You'll also find a link below to my free guide, Open to Receive, if you'd like to explore more deeply. Until next time, take good care of yourself and remain open to receive.